Hey guys, what's going on? It's Gunnar here. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are having an awesome day, but today we're going to be talking a little bit about mock scrapes. Now, as you can see here, I'm standing in a mock scrape that I had hung a rope on here. Now, this rope here is one you could purchase at Walmart or anything. I think it's a scrape fix. They're pretty cheap, but they actually are fairly durable. Now, I've used regular vines in the past. As you can see here, this is just a natural vine that's hanging down off this overhanging limb into this food plot here. Now the deer are scraping this too, just as much as they're scraping this. So the natural versus artificial thing, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, deer are gonna hit an overhanging branch if it's in the correct spot. Now, where I kind of wanted to go with this whole scrape video is somebody had asked a question. Last year was like their first year hunting, I believe, and they had gone out and they'd find some sign. They'd found some rubs, some scrapes, and they were wondering, what do I use this for? What do I utilize this valuable knowledge that I'm getting within the sign aspect of deer hunting? How do I apply it to becoming successful hunting? So sign is great to find, and there's a lot of people that always find sign, but applying it to a strategic plan to go out and harvest deer based off the sign you're finding is the tricky part. Now, when it comes to scrapes, the value that I weigh each individual scrape on is different in each situation. A scrape like this that had been here previously to me hanging this mock scrape, this scrape vine, I already knew these deer were using this tree to scrape. Now, I had to go in and I tried to figure out why they were using this. Well, it's a perfect bedding point going to ag field within this food plot. Guys, it's Gunnar, look. A lot of you guys have been talking to me, telling me how you need help. Well, I want to talk to you today about Whitetail coaching. One-on-one virtual coaching with me. We'll go in depth on whatever problems, whatever help you need. We'll find the solution you're looking for. Shoot me a text, 608-632-7233. 608-632-7233. I got your back for life. Now let's get back to the video. There's a lot of deer congregating here. They're coming off this beautiful bedding slope and they're necking down right here on this heavy trail where there's a fence break. What they're doing is they're communicating here in this food plot before they go out and socialize in the ag fields. These are the scrapes that I'm looking at as more of an intel tactic that I use to gain knowledge on what deer are in the area. Is there a quality buck in the area? How many does I'm looking at? I can get a really good herd analysis by analyzing the deer that are hitting this scrape, moving to this consistent food source, which is an ag field just after this food plot here. So this is more of your socialized evening movement scrape. Now this gets hit year round because the movement is consistent. There's always something to eat here. There's rye, as you can see, growing here. It's lush green rye right now. The deer are still transitioning to this food plot because I have year-round food for the most part. Other than a couple months during the summertime, there's always food here. Now I'm gonna play around with that this year. I might come in here and I might seed some clover into this, maybe some tillage radish to try to build my soil, maybe some sunflowers, big sorghum stems, whatever that may be. I'm trying to build the topsoil on this food plot. As you can see, there's a little bit of a slope here in the back. Maybe you can't, but I've lost some topsoil here over the last few years, kind of mismanaging the way I'm doing food plots. So I'm kind of trying to revamp, go more of a no-till style or very light till and less frequently than what I have been doing here in my food plots up to this point. But besides the fact, this has been an attractive area for the deer to come through here year round, so they're always utilizing this scrape. So I usually categorize this as more of a social scrape, an evening food source scrape. Maybe it's not a primary. There's not every single deer hitting this scrape, but a lot of deer are hitting the scrape as they transition out to the food sources when they get here. You could compare this scrape to more of like a dive bar scene. There's a lot of the locals coming in, they're checking out, seeing who's around, and then they're transitioning off into the bar they stay at all night. Maybe this is a one stop, and then they go off and do their own thing the rest of the night. But the other type of scrape is a primary. Now, a primary scrape is very easily defined. You're gonna find a lot of these in valleys, is where I've seen majority of them, or low areas here in the big hill country. A lot of those valleys where there's a good neck down, there's a lot of deer congregating and transitioning through those valleys because those thermals are dropping down. It's a very high deer density area because there's a lot of different trails exiting and crossing through there. So naturally, there's gonna be a lot of deer activity down those bottoms. And what I've found and what I've seen is these scrapes are massive. I mean, they're the size of a car hood. And when you see one, you know what you're looking at because there's deer tracks everywhere. There's gonna be sign all the way around it. You're gonna have a nasty licking branch hanging off that's probably snapped off, and you can see it's bare because the bark has been bitten off all the way up. They're gnawing on that limb, dropping scent. They're scraping out a giant pad underneath that, and then there's probably going to be a lot of rubs around that area. Now those type of scrapes are the ones that you really want to pay attention to. Those are the scrapes that are going to provide a potential hunting opportunity if they're in the correct location. I've hunted primary scrapes a handful of times. Every single time I do, it's a great sit. But you have to be careful. If you destroy that area, you're potentially destroying a very good opportunity to harvest a deer. So when I go into those areas, it's not very frequent. A lot of times it can be a one and done situation depending on where that's at. But I like to take my risk from time to time because it can pay off in big ways. Those scrapes are frequently visited. There's a lot of bucks hitting them, a lot of does hitting them. I've got one that I know about right now that actually has standing urine in it year round. There's always a puddle of urine in it because those deer are using it so much. Anytime you go down in there, it smells like rutting buck just because of the sheer number of deer that are communicating through that scrape. Now, those are the scrapes that I'm looking at trying to find a way to hunt them if possible. Now, a secondary scrape, those are the scrapes that you're just gonna come across when it comes to walking trails throughout the woods. It's gonna be just a small 2x2 dirt pad that's been brushed away of the leaves. A lot of those secondary scrapes are never gonna get hit again. It's basically a buck just decided to get moody. He wanted to display dominance. He decided to make a scrape right where he was standing at the time being, and he's never gonna hit it again. Those are the scrapes that you can understand that there's a buck in the area, or there was, but they're not gonna provide that hunting opportunity that you're looking for. If you're trying to find sign that you can potentially hunt and have a good opportunity to kill something over, the primary scrapes or potentially your food source movement scrapes along those field edges are gonna be your best bet. I really like apple trees on those field edges. They naturally grow a little bit lower and wider. They have a lot of overhanging branches. They're highly attractive in October when those bucks' testosterone levels are starting to shoot up. They're starting to get antsy and they're starting to lay down some signs. They're rubbing that velvet off and they're starting to communicate with the other bucks in the area. Hey, I'm the dominant guy here. Don't mess with me. They're trying to communicate to the does that this is my territory. I'm the man here. So I really like those apple trees. Really any fence line, if you go along it, if you find a good neck down, a couple of trails that are crossing, you're probably gonna find one of those field edge scrapes. And a lot of times they're bigger than those secondary scrapes that you're just gonna find willy-nilly here throughout on the trails in the woods. So pay attention. Find those good community scrapes that are being hit more frequently than just those random trail scrapes that you might come across as you're walking to your stand or going back to the truck. So to the viewer that had the question over what to do with the sign, find the sign that's being consistently hit. That's what we're after here when we're hunting mature whitetails. We're trying to harvest mature whitetails. We're after consistency. How can we find a consistent movement that gives us the best possibility to harvest that buck when we go in there? That's finding consistent patternable movement. So if you find one of those primary scrapes or you find a good field edge scrape that you think's getting hit pretty often, throw a camera on it, make sure you hide it good. I set my camera at this location about 25, 30 yards away on a box elder on that field edge. I want to give these deer a lot of room to feel comfortable. Now it's not there right now, but it's normally high up on that tree. I'm getting plenty of distance between the deer hitting this scrape, feeling comfortable hitting this scrape, communicating, and then as they transition out to the food source, they conveniently walk right by my camera and I get a photo of them. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for those good field edge scrapes that I can get a good intel read on the deer in the area, and I'm looking for those primaries that I could potentially hunt over just outside a doe bedding area or just outside that buck bedding area, because that's going to be your highest percentage when it comes to hunting scrapes.